Здравствуйте, подписчики, зрители. Мы начинаем наш прямой эфир. Oh, good. Эфир будет на английском языке. Привет, Вероника.
Привет, Вероника. И Марина, можешь, пожалуйста, там просто вкратце сказать, как вы представите всех нас? Да?
Ага. So, Bob, I'm going to introduce you first, okay, to our audience in Russian. У нас в гостях Боб Сэм. Но в двух словах про него можно сказать, что он storyteller, рассказчик. Он живет на Аляске. У него очень много работ общественных. Он активист от Native People from Alaska, Аляски. Человек с очень активной гражданской позицией, и уже несколько десятков лет его главная миссия, он сохраняет память о своих предках, ухаживает за кладбищами на Аляске, и в том числе за русским кладбищем, а также он возвращает останки индейцев со всего мира на свою родину. Ну и последние годы он очень активный как гражданский активист за права своего народа. Bob, can I introduced you to our audience in Russian, and let me introduce you to my friend. Please meet each other. This is Vera Solовьева. She is a coordinator of our site and like a leader of our Sаха Diaspora in America. My friend for many years. Vera, this is Bob Сэм.
Nice to meet you, Bob.
Yeah, we first met at Fort Ross like a few years ago. He was visiting. He visited the Alaskan Day, and then where I first heard his storytelling.
Marina actually told me about you like a few years ago already, and told that we have to meet someday. I'm so happy to see you that Marina actually was able to organize this meeting, that's Instagram meeting. And it will be very interesting to hear about your people, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining.
So Bob, how are you today?
I'm fine. I'm doing well.
Good. How's the weather there at Alaska?
Oh, it's always beautiful. Sitka's beautiful every day.
Uh-huh. You live in Sitka, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I sent you our questions, so let's start, okay? So can you first tell us, our audience, like briefly where you're from, and maybe something about your family, when you were raised, and how, like your family history?
I've been looking forward to this for some time, and I have to admit this technology is fairly new to me. It's important that I share a little bit about myself. I was raised here in Alaska. I come from a very traditional family, and I grew up in the territory of Alaska, and we didn't have running water or sewer, electricity. we had to haul our water, and all our food came from nature, from ocean. And even though you would think that we were poor, but no, we lived off the land and ocean, and gosh, we lived off crab and halibut and king salmon and clams and berries, and who's poor?
It's true. Who's
Who's
poor?
poor? So that's our lifestyle. All our food came from nature, and we lived in a very small house. I had 3 other brothers and 6 sisters. I had uncles and grandparents. My grandmother lived in the house, so we had a very big house, very large, extended family. And my grandmother was boss. She was the boss. We come from a matriarchal society.
Так, связь прерывается, да? Something is connection.
Am I still there?
Yeah.
Yes. Good
We
now.
come from a matriarchal society. So we take our mother's clan and growing up in a very small village, we were actually surrounded by a non-native community, and created some very difficult times for us. And the territory, we were discriminated against, like treated like second-class citizens and not really human being. So it was a very difficult time, and racism and was very high. And during that time, I was raised by my grandmother, and she taught us about plants, harvesting plants, and the use of healing plants, because we couldn't afford Western medicine as well, or going to a doctor. So we really relied on nature medicine, plant medicine, and even building our own fire stove. And all this stuff was, even if I was a child, the moment you were born, you had to contribute to the household. You had to, for survival. So every single person in the household had to contribute something. Even a baby, you had to contribute something. So quite often I would go with my grandmother to harvest plants, healing plants, teas, that kind of stuff. And she would talk to us, talk to me about plants and tell me stories about plants that we harvest and make me feel good about myself and to share about the plants that we're going to harvest. And she'd share stories, really feel good stories, and encourage me to have a good night's sleep. And during the night, I would actually dream about the plants that we're going to harvest the next day. I would dream about them, and because of my grandmother's story. So the next morning I wake up and my grandmother would continue sharing good stories about me with me. And then she'd tell me to wash my face, wash my hands with water, only pure water, cold water. So I'm washing my hands and my face with water. And then she'd tell me, if you think about it, when you're washing your face and your hands with water, the plant that we are going to get is also washing face and hands with water. And that plant is preparing itself. Because if you dream about that plant, then the plant dreams about you. Same time. So if that happens, then when you go out to the forest and gather medicine, you will go right to that plant that you dreamt about. Because the plant dreamt about you. So you will come together. And you will talk to that plant. You will give an offering. You will thank that plant. You will talk to that plant like another human being. Just like human. And if you can talk to plant like human being, something special happened to you. You become like a doctor. People come into your life. Your friend, your family. When they come into the door, you will look at them. You will look at their skin, their hair, how they walk, how they talk, how they dress themselves. You will see. And when you look at them, you will know which plant they need for their life. Just by looking at them, even their fingernail, you will know just by looking at them what plant you need. So plants are human beings, just like us. And Why is that? Back in the ancient time, I'm going to talk about Raven. Raven is our trickster. He is our messenger. He is the one that taught human beings who we are today. So it was Raven that made the first human being. But Raven made the first human being out of stone. But what happened? The stone people, they were too slow, and they lived forever. So Raven did not think it was right for human beings to live forever. So Raven pushed them away, and he made human beings out of a plant, elderberry plant, made the first human being. So that's why human beings die, and that we are no longer immortal. But the plant still remember us, that we are the same spirit as plant. So the plant people, they love us. They remember us as being one spirit. They remember. So they give their life to us. But they don't really give their life. They present themselves to us. And we don't kill them. We don't kill animals. We don't kill deer. They present themselves to us. They give themselves to us. So that's why plants heal us. They
It's
love
an
us.
amazing story.
It's amazing. It's
Wow.
yeah.
And it gets even deeper. In ancient time, all human beings were godlike and immortal. All of us indigenous people in the whole world have these ancient stories of being godlike and immortal. You have them as well. You have them. And at that time, we were immortal. But among these people, there was the one God who did not think it was right for human beings to be godlike and immortal. So the one God brought all the people together. The one God blew a breath. The breath turned into a fog. The fog fell onto the people's minds. And they began to forget that they were godlike and immortal. And these people went into the four directions: black, white, yellow, and red people. They went into the four directions, and they forgot that they were godlike and immortal, and they began to die. Today, the people are beginning to cross paths. Black, white, yellow, and red people.
Mm-hmm.
We're beginning to cross paths. So those of us that still remember these ancient stories of being godlike and immortal, it's our duty to remind the rest of us that we were once one people at one time. Indigenous people know these things. We know these things, but the world is trying to kill us. There is only a few of us left. We are dying, but our spirit is alive, and we are human beings just like the rest of the world. So we have something to offer them.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Bob,
should share it willingly.
Bob, you mentioned before that, like, your people, your culture is like nowadays you having like a Renaissance time. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, it's good and bad news. In Alaska, we have climate change. Climate change in the north is happening right now. Right now. And the glaciers are melting. Nature is dying right now. So the last 30 years in Alaska, we almost lost our culture, our language, our way of life. It almost disappeared from us. And the elders brought it back. The language, culture, heritage. And what's interesting is the young people picked up the drum and started to sing and learn the language and embrace the culture 20 years ago. And so we have celebration every 2 years. 20 years ago, maybe 200 people. Today, 10,000. 10,000 people speaking the language, the culture, the heritage, the young people stopping drinking, drugs, getting back to our culture, embracing it. And we have corporations, timber, mining, business corporations regional profit-making corporations. We complete oil. We completely got out of carbon-based stuff, completely, and abandoned timber cutting. And we're going back to our old culture, medicines, teas, making garments, art, wood, artists. And we're going into our Renaissance time of our ancient spirit that you have as well. It never died. It only went to sleep. Only. So I'm here today to turn on those lights that we all have in here. It's in here and it never went away. It never died in here. Even 100 years ago, what did the people do? They weaved. They preserved the old way and passed it down to us. They weaved it into the baskets. They weaved it into the family values. So even though we lost many things, it's waking up. And
Can I ask a question? You know, like in our Saha Republic, in our homeland, we see that actually young people, how to say that, like more people speak Saha language before than now. Now young people, they actually speak more Russian, for example, and more interested in the global world, like just know. So how your people able to teach young people to take a drum, for example, and interested in your culture? How you did that?
it's not something that happens overnight. A lot of our young people reach an age where they feel shame. They don't like their indigenous side. And when they're very young, they do. But when they get to like elementary school or middle school, they lose interest and they become ashamed. And so we are also at a point where the language is almost totally gone. That's the truth. And only a few speakers left. But we have immersion programs, and we have language spoken in the public schools now, where all of our place names are sacred places. We're removing the English names for them and putting our names, sacred names, back on them, even renaming schools. And we're making people feel proud. It's what we call taking our rightful place in society and making it such that we should never feel shame. And white people should never look down on us. Ever. 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 And that we show them who we are. We share our language with them. We share our culture with them. We open up our doors with them. We teach their young children our Tlinkit way of life because all children are Indians. All children. They love it. They love being Indians. So we teach them. So we just keep that spirit alive. And we heal. We're healing from trauma. We're healing from boarding school. We're healing from abuse and rape and stalking and sexual assault. We're healing from that.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you heal?
It doesn't happen overnight. We're tired of the leaders who abuse women. We're tired of the children being hurt. And we're using the pandemic. We're setting aside the worst part of us because we're dying. We are dying.
This
So
very
we're taking the best of what we have, and we're going to come out of the pandemic with the children. They're the ones
happened
leading.
in our homeland too.
What's that?
The same thing that COVID happened in our homeland too. It's very difficult situation.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. There's a question, Bob, that people ask, do you still have problem in Alaska when white people see on the indigenous people as a second sort? Second, как второсортно сказать? Like second quality people or something?
Could you say that again?
That there's a
Like
question.
you mentioned before.
Yeah, there's a question like that people somebody from our audience asked if in Alaska you have problem when white people see indigenous people as a second
Like
quality.
you mentioned before. Is it
Yeah.
still there?
Is it
Yeah.
still there? No.
That's a big problem. And I'm a very traditional man. I don't have an ounce of hatred towards other races. And I use my culture, my ancient culture that tells me that we are connected to all human beings in the world, including white people, and that they're also very indigenous people as well, and that they also lost their culture as well,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they came to America. They lost something in Europe. So when they come to Alaska, oftentimes they leave their family behind in America someplace. So they're very lonely. And up here in Alaska, we actually feel sorry for them because they're lonely. So we take them in, feed them, include them, and share with them. Something special happens. They begin to remember. So it's my feeling that a majority of those white folks, they love us. They absolutely love us. And it's only a few, those 1% that want us dead. So all we have to do is keep including them into our lives. And we'll actually become a better people. We'll go back to our old spirit when we meet people for the first time. We thrive and we benefit and we trade. Right? That's who we are. We are a loving, compassionate people. And if you always speak kindly in English, always, then you're speaking your old indigenous language because it's based on kindness and love. Right?
Right.
Right.
Very well said, Bob. So, speaking of speaking, can you tell your story about becoming a storytelling and what is the storytelling tradition means for your people, for your tradition? Can you tell us about that, please? Because we have the same tradition in our Saha people. We have storytellers as well.
Yeah. It's name Alan Hout. Their names.
Yeah. I'm a storyteller. When I was a young man, the older people, they like to watch young. And they noticed I stopped drinking, doing drugs and stuff like that. And I even became a drug and alcohol counselor. And I started teaching young people. But then the older people invited me to culture camps back then. And an elder was watching me speak in public. He came up to me and he said, "Robert, your voice is beautiful. You should become a storyteller." No. I can't speak in public. My hands get all sweat and my stomach gets tight. My knees shake. I can't speak in public. "Robert, your voice is beautiful. You should become a storyteller." No, I can't. I can't speak in public. Finally, I agree. And I thought, once you agree, You actually sit in front of an elder and learn stories. I thought that's what you did. But that's not what happened to me. They sent me to professional theater school for voice training. Professional. And they trained my voice. Baby, bye, bo, boo, keiki, kai, koku, de, di, dai, do, do. All the stuff that musicians and artists train to train your voice to sing. They trained me. And then the traditional people, elders, started teaching me the stories, and in a cultural way. And we formed a theater company. And we went on to become the #1 theater company in the country. Indigenous theater, storytelling. We blended modern theater with our ancient traditional style of storytelling. And we brought in elders who had their own style of storytelling, and we studied their mannerisms, how they talked, how they dressed, how they spoke English, Tlinkit, and we studied them. And then I began to find my own style. There are many different kinds of styles. And tone is most important. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is the most important part of storytelling. This story began in an ancient time. An ancient time when animal can talk to human, and human can talk to animal. There is a spirit in all things. Tone is so important for healing. Tone brings the audience in to the storyteller. Tone creates, when the storyteller speaks, your voice goes out and the story and the audience ears come in right in the middle. That's the healing. That's the healing. And when you have that, you can make people cry, you can make them laugh, you can help them through grief and sorrow, you can heal them in a safe way, just with your voice, tone. And so they sent me to Europe to spend 1 year so that I could learn to respect white people. Because Tlinkit means human being. And we're all connected. And they told me to stop hating white people. That made a whole different person out of me. No more anger. No more hatred. I went back to the original Tlinkit person that I was meant to be. And when we do that, we attract something. Something turns on in us, and white people that used to hate us and don't like us, they're attracted to it. And this is the other thing. If they don't know us, then they become ignorant. And when they're ignorant and they don't know us, they fear us. So what they fear, they destroy. But there's another side to this. If we step up as a people and allow those bridges that they want to make to us, then the love, the respect, the honor, we become the human beings that we were meant to be. And white people become the human beings they were meant to be. So it's all about love and kindness.
It's so interesting, Bob. Very deep. It's very deep because
And so true.
I never thought from that perspective. Never. And like you just kind of open our eyes. Like it's so interesting to think about that. Thank you.
All of us indigenous people feel this way. All of us. We were never intended to hate.
That's right.
Yeah, it's true. It's really true.
Very true.
So let's go back. And what I mean about that, let's make it relevant for the time we live in. It's not about bringing our old culture back. It's about making it relevant for the time we are in. Speak our language, speak our culture, share our knowledge about nature, about taking care of nature. The world needs to hear us how to take care of nature, else it's going to die. So we got to pat ourselves on the back more and feel more proud of ourselves, like we have something to offer. So, yeah, I'm a very optimistic person. The other thing I'd like to get into, repatriation and ancestors and cemeteries. That's my primary work over storytelling, over cultural stuff. I'm taking care of ancestors. I'm bringing them home from boarding schools. I'm bringing them home from museums and institutions. That's my job. Number one job. That's my work. I restore ancient cemeteries, ancient places, ancient village sites, port sites, sacred places, cemeteries. That's my work.
Can I have a question, Bob, about the repatriation? I know that's like, what should you do to take, for example, that remindings of your ancestors from institution or kind of museum? What should you do?
Many of these institutions, museums, federal agencies, they've had these things for over 100 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's true.
They do.
And
Mm-hmm.
they took care of them. And we should thank them for taking care of them. Otherwise, they would be lost. And they preserved them. So, and also, the mindset of the museums is changing, becoming more like cultural anthropology,
Mhm.
where they're working more with the living than the dead. So they support the tribes coming back alive. They support the return of the objects. They support the coming alive of our spirituality, and they support the inherent right for indigenous people to bring their ancestors home. It's an inherent right, and it's also a lineal descendant right.
Mhm.
Lineal descendants have more rights than corporations and even governments because they have the right. World indigenous right to take care of their ancestor.
It's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And about your job, so when you bury remainings of your ancestors, do you follow any traditions? Oh,
I've been doing this work. My Tlinkit name, Shaganasta. It's the man who taught human beings how to treat the dead.
oh.
That's my name. And
I'm sorry, when you received your name,
wait. I am the man that taught human beings how to treat the dead. And I never look at human remains as Tlingit, Haida. I look at them totally as human remains. Totally. And all the museums and institutions, I thank them. And they willingly turn it over to me. Willingly. Because it's the right thing to do. And that also, if you treat all human beings with dignity, respect, and honor when they die, that defines who we are as human beings. That's why we bury the dead. That's why all human beings bury the dead. And that's why I talk like this. And I've been able to convince people to willingly turn over. I've been burying. I buried people that died 10,000 years ago. I treat them all the way you would have treated any human being. Any human being. So that's my philosophy, and it works. And we have to stop feeling less than. We are conditioned to feel less than. Take, for instance, and I'm going to go there, Creole. What the heck is Creole? We're all human beings. Otherwise, I can't have a kid from somebody from Florida. You know? We're all human beings. And that's how we should treat each other. It's called taking our rightful place in society. We are not less than. Okay?
Yeah, it's good. Bob, can I ask a question, please? It's like when you take your name when you grew up or when you was a child?
What's that?
When you when somebody when you got your name when you was a child or when you grew up already?
Oh no, we believe in reincarnation.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And I was named after my ancestor.
Mm.
And it's like my ancestor came back. We carry the DNA of our ancestors. And we live up to our names. We practice our culture and our heritage. And we come back again and again and again. And
So you had your name, your real name for the whole life, right? Wow.
Was interesting. Oh wow, 1,000 years. So interesting. Uh-huh. There was a question from our audience. They asked, what do you think about the your ancestors' heritage? Like, there's some opinion that people from Siberia came to Alaska and then to America.
oh yeah, I've been dealing with this for quite some time. The Pacific Ocean. Why would people cross the ocean from Siberia to Alaska when there's so much food underneath the ocean? Why? So if you think about it, the ocean is our nation. The ocean is our country. The canoe is our car. And our migration all across the ocean is migration. And actually, when you think about it, for 10,000 years, we've always lived on the ocean. We are an ocean people. We travel to Hawaii, we travel to New Zealand, we travel to visit you, we travel to South America. That's our nation, the ocean. So we should look at it as our nation. Not going from Siberia to Alaska, but rather living on the ocean for 10,000 years. And we know the stars better than anybody. We taught modern people about the stars. We taught modern people how to stitch, operating, major doctor operating and stitching on a wound. You know where they got those stitches from? Indigenous people. They got those stitches from us. So be positive, be proud, grow another inch because of what we've contributed to this world.
So
And
true.
that we're going to save it as well.
Another question, from probably you already see that. What do you think? How indigenous people can preserve their culture in the era of globalization? What do you think about that? Could you please tell?
I'm glad you asked that. I mentioned a little bit about abuse. I'm not one to forgive anyone that harms a child in any way. I'm dedicating my life to protecting women and children. So I'm going to answer this question this way. If you never harm a child, if you never hit a woman, if you set aside your anger, your hatred, never harm a child, something special happens. That child will automatically want to pick up the drum, want to speak the language, want to become a deeply spiritual person from the moment they are born. Because we talk to them even when they're inside the belly. We drum to them. We sing to them. We speak our language to them when they're still in the belly. And when we do that, and when they're born, and we never harm them, they're going to come out singing, dancing, and drumming. And they're going to be doing it for the rest of their life. And we're going to groom them, never harming them, And if we do that, the best of us, the very best of us is going to come. The very best. Because we never harmed them in the first place. That is key. First, do no harm. And you know abuse is pretty bad. It's bad. So let's deal with that and bring the best generation into our lives. And the people are there because there's lots of really strong indigenous people out there, like you. Tough, strong. You just have to partner together.
I agree. We have so much in common in the history, in the culture, and traditional, in the view of life, everything. Thank you, Bob.
We're family. We are family.
Yeah.
And family is the most important thing. And the thing that we have to teach the modern people is family is more important than job, career, money, and anything. Because currently people are dying because that's all they think about, job, career, money. But when it comes down to it, family is the most important thing. And we need to teach modern people that. They know as well.
And here's a question that how many children do you have, and what religion do you have? That audience from the questions from the audience.
I'm a grandfather. I have 2 grandsons, and I'm raising them to appreciate the best of both worlds, and that I'm teaching them that to love their grandpa and to be proud, but also to be proud of their non-native side as well, to find a balance for them. And my daughter, who's a mix, who felt shame because of it, I've been working with her whole life. And you can't be half this and half that. It's just not possible. And so I've been instilling in her to really live and embrace both sides of her life. And to appreciate, because because we're human. And that's my daughter. And those are my grandchildren. And there's no reason for them to feel shame at all. So I'm very proud to be a grandpa.
Mm.
Healthy lifestyles.
So nice. They're happy to have a grandfather like you.
Oh, yeah.
And a father like you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, my wife is remarried. She's remarried. And they live in Seattle. But they've always stood by me.
mhm.
Even though we separated, my family has always stood by me.
Mhm.
You know, family's
It's very
important.
important.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob, for all of your stories. Very interesting. Should we listen for the last story from you? Like,
How much time we have?
I don't know, like 15, 20 minutes, maybe. Let's say 15.
I'll share a story.
Okay. Can I make an announcement for our audience? Зрители, мы сейчас интервью закончили, а сейчас Боб нам расскажет традиционную историю, сказку. Ну, по-английски, опять же. София, ready?
Usually I try to consider my audience on storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes I have to think about the story and think about the audience. So
Our audience mostly Russian speakers, of course, but many Saha people, like the young people, are speaking English now. So
okay.
And
Yeah.
I'm translating too.
You're gonna translate?
I'm right
The
now.
comments?
I'm typing actually.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm very providing like brief translation in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
This story is a little bit complicated, but maybe it's appropriate. It's about 20 minutes. No, I'll switch to another one. This is more better.
Okay.
It'd be about 20 minutes. It's a prophecy story. It's a story about a coming of an end of a life as my people knew. It's a story about death and destruction and hope. Older people, when they share a story like this, they always end with hope.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the story. It's called The Cannibal Giant. It's a story that was taught to me by a man named Andrew P. Johnson. There's this village in the olden days that was living in hard times, bad times. Once it was a great village with powerful clans and lots of people. They were the proudest people you would ever meet. Plenty of food to eat. Proud people. What happened to them? A cannibal got them. Someplace far back in the woods. Behind this village, there lived a giant of a man who was a cannibal. One by one, he killed the hunters, crept into the village at night, killed the women, children, killed them all, carried them back to his house, and ate them like animals. And all that was left were these three brothers. They talked among themselves, but did not know what to do. If the cannibal got the three of them too, it'd only be a matter of time before he goes to the other villages or on to the rest of the world. They had to stop him, but they did not know how. In the meantime, they still had to feed themselves and live. The oldest brother went out to hunt. When the oldest brother went out to hunt, he did not come back. When the oldest brother did not come back, they knew. They stayed close together, armed and ready, and they tried to keep each other awake and alert. But days passed, and nights, and sooner or later, they had to sleep. The next brother was taken in his sleep, and the youngest brother was the only one left, and he knew he had no choice. He would have to do battle with that cannibal alone. So he prepared himself. He went to the houses of his 4 uncles, and he took arrows from each house. He remembered the wisdom from those uncles when they were alive. And that's what these arrows represent. Wisdom. Then he began to fast. He took a sacred herb, put it into a medicine bag around his neck, and he went to sleep. And in his sleep, he dreamed an everlasting dream. Hashaganya, the voice of God, who told him to treat that body of his enemy the way he would have someone that he did not hate. Because if he didn't, the cannibal would return. When he woke up, he remembered the dream. He went out to do battle with that cannibal. He shot those arrows in the region of the palm, the eye, the heart, and the foot. But that didn't kill the cannibal. The cannibal knocked him out, put him into a bag, and dragged him back to his house. He was surprised to wake up at all, to find himself still alive there in the house of the cannibal. He looked around and saw this huge pile of skulls and human bones. And right in the middle of it all, he saw this monster eating a horrible meal. And he said to himself, he is feasting on the blood and the sweat and the grease of my people. He has made himself fat by preying on us. As bad a place as he was in, he was calm. He remembered the words of God that told him to treat the body of his enemy with respect. So he ran out of that dark house of the cannibal and out into the even darker woods. He ran until he came to a cliff up above the sea. There were alder trees just out over the edge. The young man leaped for one, grabbed one, and far below him, the dark sea crashed against the rocks. The cannibal saw him hanging there, but was just out of his reach. So he leaped and grabbed a branch near that young man. But it was too big. The branch was dead, and it broke, and the giant fell down to the beach where he was killed on the rocks. In those days, we used to cremate our dead, and the young man remembered how to treat the body of his enemy with respect. So he was burning it the same way as someone he loved. But as he burned that cannibal, he remembered how the cannibal had injured him, how he had destroyed his brothers and friends and everyone he had ever loved. And his heart was filled with rage and grief. And he said to himself, he died too easily. He didn't suffer enough. And he wanted to go on killing that cannibal, even though he was already dead. There hadn't been any such thing as mosquitoes in the world before that, but now every spark of the funeral pyre turned into one, buzzing around, hungry for blood. He had created them, and they would always be with us to torment us. In that moment, he had forgotten to fear and respect his enemy, and he had given that cannibal new life. So that's how mosquitoes came to be. Today, our elderly people, they tell that story a different way. The name of that monster is not cannibal, but alcohol, drugs, hatred, racism, even tobacco. It never goes away. But we can fight them. And if we remember who we are and where we get our strength, we could still win. It's our culture, our language, our way of life. It's coming back. We have hope. We quit drinking. We quit beating our wives. We quit beating children. We have hope. So we want to share with you this hope and spread it across the world. This hope. And click. Turn the light back on. Simple. Very simple. But we spend too much time up here and not enough time here. So those of you who have PhDs, listen to this. It's all about right here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much.
That's very deep, interesting story. I'm gonna translate it and put in our live stream description later. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you.
So I think we're gonna get finishing. And
But there's like a few questions, maybe like
yeah,
there are people interested what religion we have.
Religion?
Yeah.
We are For 500 years, we are Russian Orthodox. Alaska, the Orthodox Church. Here in Alaska, the Orthodox Church helped preserve our culture because they allowed us to have our ceremonies in the church, and they allowed us to have our services in our language. So they were more open, I guess. And also, all the other Christian churches are in Alaska, Catholic, Baptist, all of them. And for me personally, I'm not threatened by them. And if I'm not threatened by them, I should accept them into my life because I'm not threatened. I have my own spirituality, nature kind. So I'm not at all threatened by Christianity. And I even embrace it because it's all about love and prayer. And in any language, love and prayer needs no translation. So we just take what they have and make it ours. And we love Christ's love, Jesus' love. We knew about Jesus thousands of years ago. We knew he was coming to us. So we accept. And all ancient people know this. We know. That's why we're still here.
But you told about your nature spirituality, right? It's like what does it mean?
Esoteric. You know, esoteric.
Yeah. So do you believe in spirits?
You know Buddhism. You know Kukai. You know esoteric Buddhism. You know blending of indigenous ancient spirituality blended with modern Buddhism, Shinto Buddhism. You know these things. And we're
But
just making...
I'm sorry, do you have shamans?
And shamans. Spirituality. We used to think that shamanism each and every one of us has this special power. Maybe, I don't like the word shaman, but special power every single human being has that can like say for men, if they acknowledge that they have female power because we come from our mother, and men deny they have this female power their whole life, and become macho. But if they acknowledge that they have this female power in them, it creates a balance in their life. And when that balance happens, they could see the future. They could send messages far away. Their instincts become more strong, and they become powerful people. And it's the same with female energy coming from matriarch, coming from female. And you know as well that most plants in the plant world are female. And so the power is actually female power. And you know all of the volcanoes in the world have female spirits, female gods. So balance is power. Shaman power is balance. And I don't want to get too far more into it because people are going to start thinking I got this power. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you very much. It was so inspiring and so interesting. Thank you.
And I agree, we all as indigenous people, we have to support each other. Like sharing our stories, getting together.
So if we
sharing.
only speak kindly in a loving way, we're preserving our way of life.
So our audience making comments, they admire, like saying like, как перевести это? How I can translate?
Что?
Ну, они говорят про Боба, что...
Did you send me the comments?
Yeah, Bob, a few people told...
Trying to translate them.
Like, a few people told that you have a beautiful voice. Voice, yeah. And they ask, do you know your native language, your mother tongue? Do you know your native language, Tlingit language?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about language. If you were born around it and raised around it when you were young, actually when you become elder age, it comes back. And it comes back in your dreams. And most of us are sleeping speakers because English is our primary language, but we're actually sleeping speakers. And as we get older, we remember more language. At least I am.
So you can speak, right? Or you are...
I understand.
You understand. Oh, I see.
And I'm speaking more.
I see. Good. And people also ask about, do you practice healing, like with your voice, with plants?
Healing is also another thing that's coming back to. I was raised by my grandmother who taught me about plants. And this information almost disappeared. So back in the 1980s, we decided to bring this knowledge back, plant knowledge. And when we met, when the elders first came together, they said they don't have any knowledge. But when they talked to each other, they remembered. And now it's being passed down to the next generation, healing. And we're identifying the plants, identifying the old stories associated with them, tying them into Raven, who taught us about how healing, and we're making it relevant today because of the pandemic. And we're sharing teas and salves and medicines, and we're having plant symposiums, harvest guidelines, sustainability, and teaching mostly young women how to be harvesters, because they're the ones that are healers. It's always the women that do the healing. They are the ones that keep us together. And even me, when I share leadership stuff as a man, I got to go home to my mom. And if I said something wrong, my mom's going to tell me. So, yeah. Yeah. And even when men get sick, when they have colds and flus, what do? Mommy, I'm sick. Mommy. And it doesn't matter how old we are. We could be 90 years old. When we have a cold, we call mom. So that's how important you are. Thank you so much for being mom.
Thank you.
Oh.
So sweet.
One of the subscribers wrote that they can feel healing effect from your voice already.
That's what healing's all about. It's not the distance. It's the energy. Remember I talked about the connection. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was very interesting, very inspiring and healing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I hope we're gonna talk again, like in the future, one more time.
Okay.
Because I can listen you like nonstop, all of your stories.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
it's so
much
interesting.
to learn about.
I prepared for this. There's another side, and I'd like to close with it. We are all wild. There's something very wild about us. Maybe it's nature, but we should never let that wildness go away. It's powerful, and it's strong, and it's part of who we are as Indigenous people. So it's okay to be wild once in a while. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bob, very
Bob,
much.
one more question that it's like I remember. Could you please answer? That people asked if, for example, in our tradition, we feed spirit of the fire. In your tradition, do you do that or no?
Well, of course we do. We're exactly the same as you. We consider fire spirit.
Mm-hmm.
We even put fire in everything and put the spirit in everything. Everything has a spirit. Everything.
Yeah, same as us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's what we call the one spirit. We call it the everlasting one. It's called the one who never left us. And it's also called God. We call it Hashagenya, God.
Mm-hmm.
And it also means the people before us,
Mm-hmm.
the people now, and the people after us.
Mm.
And we are all living now.
Mm.
Hashagenya.
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 Hashagenya. Bumana beten tulunan Тангара. Джаннар, люди, которые жили до нас, и одновременно есть же такое же значение: люди жили до нас, люди, которые живут сейчас, и люди, которые жить потом. И еще Боб сказал о том, что они тоже кормят огонь и тоже считают, что весь мир населен духами. Это вот такой краткий перевод. Хашагения. Это so... Wow. Our God is our Tangara. It's a sun. Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Well, maybe we should end here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bob, so much.
Thank you very
Bye
much.
now.
Yeah. Bye for now. It's so nice to meet you and listen to
Me
you.
too.
Дорогие зрители, мы на этом заканчиваем наш прямой эфир. И, значит, под постом мы его сохраним, и под постом сделаем краткий перевод. Ну, что сможем, переведем. Всем спасибо и до свидания. Our subscribers wishing you all the best and the good health.